Uh, very good evening to all of you. Now let's start the program. I request Dr. Ira Patnakar to deliver your welcome address.
Thank you, Dr. Balu. Thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Today's online webinar is a joint collaboration of two prestigious institutes, NIDM New Delhi and HCM RIPA Udaipur, Rajasthan. Our patrons, Major General Manoj K. Bindal sir, Executive Director NIDM, and Mr. Venkatesh Sharma, Head of our Institute, HCM RIPA Udaipur. We welcome you, sir, and seek your blessings for today's event. Professor Santosh Kumar, Head CCDRR, that is Child-Centric Disaster Risk Reduction at NIDM. Sir, your able guidance is much valued for this webinar. We welcome you, sir. Dr. As Convener and Program Officer, CCDRR, NIDM, we welcome you, sir. And Dr. Balu I as the coordinator, along with me, I'm Ira Bhatnagar from HCM Udaipur. Balu sir, we are happy to have you with us today. Our renowned speakers for the day, Dr. Vashi Chandra and Dr. Helen Christina, would be sharing their valuable thoughts during this webinar. I welcome them and I extend a very warm welcome to all our honorable guests and would like to welcome all the distinguished participants who have joined us today. I welcome you all. Mr. Balu, if it is okay, give a brief about my institute and then you can say something about NIDM also, please, or it is as you want.
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Okay. Thank you, Balu. Since it is a joint collaboration of NIDM and HCM RIPA, I would like to give a brief about our institute also. The HCM Rajasthan State Institute of Public Administration, Udaipur, along with its head office in Jaipur, is the premier training institute of Government of Rajasthan for training of officers from central and civil services. This apex level institute is responsible for conducting various types of training and is under the direct control of the Government of Rajasthan. Or Sandeep Verma, a very senior IS officer, also pre-trained to the government. And it's our institute in Udaipur. The mission of our institute institutional work for productivity of public servants serving in different government organizations, not only as a team, but even as individuals in their current and future roles. We have, as you all must be knowing at NIDM, we have the Center for Disaster Management also in our institute, and under which we are organizing regularly capacity building training programs in disaster management. And other than this center, the institute conducts regular training of trainers programs with the Department of Personnel and Training, New Delhi, as well as we conduct trainings on good governance, RTI, gender, administrative and financial rules, and soft skills, etc. Over to you, Mr. Balu, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. It's my pleasure to introduce Professor Santosh Kumar sir, who is a professor and head governance, inclusive disaster risk reduction and child-centric disaster risk reduction. And he was a former executive director, National Institute of Disaster Management. He was also a director for SARC Disaster Management Center, and he was trained in the field of disaster management at Israel. And he has published a lot of books and also a lot of articles in the journals. And the child-centric disaster risk reduction is a brainchild of Professor Santosh Kumar sir. And under his able guidance, we could able to conduct the webinars and online training programs in 36 days, 36 states. We are going to successfully complete in this December. So with this kind of information, now I invite Professor Santosh Kumar sir to deliver your opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Professor Santosh, you are on. Please unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Professor Santosh Kumar. My warm welcome to our guests who are here in the panel, and they are actually leading from the front, especially when we talk about Dr. Venkatesh Sharma and Dr. Ira Bhatnagar, along with our resource person, Dr. Helena Christina, and also Urvashi Chandra, along with Dr. Balu and Kumar Raka, who is not here, but Kumar Raka, son, Ranjan Kumar. Indeed, it's a great pleasure to be a part of this joint webinar, which we are having with the Harishchandra Mathur Institute of Public Administration, RIPA Udaipur campus. You all might be knowing also that RIPA is my alma mater, and I have been there for long. And we could set up, and we could also had this Center for Disaster Management in this, and we used to visit frequently to Udaipur campus as well. This is very, very important endeavor, and that we feel happy strongly that Rajasthan and also across the country that we are discussing these child-centric issues. You all are aware this COVID-19 has created an extraordinary trauma to all sections of the society, including children. So what we have and the kind of lockdown and unlocking, and then the behavior, the children who were confined to these four walls of the house, they were not allowed to go out the park and other places. The children are normally like we have been in the childhood did the same thing, which as a kind of a very agility, and we could move out. But these children who are kind of a problem which they are facing is extraordinary. So in this context, where the children are not allowed to go to school, schools are closed, they're confined to the household activity, and the COVID-19, we are also during this time with this stress, we are also facing cyclonic storms. We are facing flood situation in the different parts of the country, and definitely, I don't know, but the time is coming. Normally, Rajasthan also go into the deep drought situation. So, cascading impact of disasters there. And in this context, we say that climate change. And the climate change, normally we associate climate change with the variations in temperature. But also we say that it has aggravated the intensity and also the frequency of various hydrometeorological disasters, especially flood, drought, and heat wave and the cold wave. And in this situation, at the larger part of the environment, how the children are placed, where their voice is, whether they are heard or not, whether they are still considered as only the vulnerable groups, or they had plenty things to contribute. Globally, also, we have seen that many children have come forward and contributed at many forums by leading from the front, like a lady from Pakistan and also from Hungary, that we have seen that how they have led the climate movement. So what I'm saying is that they also have the wisdom along with vulnerability. So how we can take that forward. I remember then that young girl, he came on the front and said that I will not go to the school because I don't have to. If we are not going to survive, then why we go to the school? It's better to work for those who can survive, and took the lead and started working for that. So many such kind of examples are there in India as well, at many parts of the country, where we have this kind of example where the young children are coming forward, especially at the time of disasters. But important thing that we look at the segregation part, the children, if you segregate into three different categories, because we say that children are not homogeneous category. They are having different problems at different stages of their growth. And institutions or the home where they are living, that is also not homogeneous. We have rich, we have the poor, we have the middle class, those who have the four walls of the house also, and those who doesn't have the four walls of the house even. So in big kind of a heterogeneity we are living. and we need to look at the problem, which is kind of considering the framework, that what kind of a framework which possibly help the children. So in this context, we are going to discuss with the three distinguished panelists, and I'm sure they will bring out those kind of a framework. But the idea of child-centric disaster risk management came to my mind when I was the director of the SARC Disaster Management Center. And there, one girl was the victim of the this big earthquake of Nepal, and she came into group, and she was narrating with other friends also her story, and she was into adolescence and the kind of problem they faced. It was kind of a very kind of a emotional turnout. So there we decided that why not we have a kind of a special focused study on the children, where more than 30 crores of people, so children are there in the our competition, correct, in using the data. But what I would suggest that the three categories, 0 to 5 years and 5 to 10 years to 18 years of the children, their problems are different. So how these three would be addressed differently in the context of climate change, changing environment, and where the extremities will enhance. What we see is today, the kind of disaster which we are facing today, probably we can say that it is very less than what we are expecting tomorrow. Many of the black swan events which we have not seen or not experienced it so far, probably likely to come. So how our future generation is getting ready for those kind of a situation where their responsibility on their shoulder would be very high. One, that they also have to nurture the future generation, the younger one, and they will also have the challenges of nurturing and taking care of the older generation, old age. So by the time those children about whom we are discussing today, after 10 years, they will be complete adults. So they should not be caught unaware, whereas we got caught unaware in terms of pandemic, which we never faced, but nobody shared this experience of this 1918. So that is this challenge, that how those experiences can be taken and to the children. They are the future generation, and the more resilient future generation would be, the better the resilient country would be. So in this context, we thought that our child-centric DRR can spread this message and bring those our adults who have lived the child, who have gone through the childhood, they can appreciate better and take this agenda forward. So that was the idea, that how our future generation is going to be much safer. So with this, we established the center, and we are grateful to also the executive director and the government of India, who is supporting this initiative along with the UNICEF, because UNICEF initially supported this center, is still supporting. And because they are having the global experience, so we are trying to bring those global experience and trying to make it a center for excellence in the South Asia region. So that is the idea, and it is not possible unless and until we get support from all the institutions or stakeholders who are engaged into. So that is our expectations are very high, and we wish to work very closely with the government institutions as well as the civil society groups who are addressing this issue. And I'm sure the kind of response which we are getting, Dr. Balu has mentioned, that we had this 36 state support, and we are running this program. So wherever we are going and discussing, everybody is welcoming us with the unfolded arms and with the spreading arms that come, and they are embracing our concept very much. And I'm indeed grateful to all the state governments who have provided this opportunity, and here especially the government of Rajasthan and the administration of SCM RIPA. And Venkatesh Sharma ji, I'm grateful to you that you appreciated and given this opportunity to get combined efforts roll around, so that we will be able to achieve our objective. So once again, I take this opportunity to welcome all of you. And on behalf of Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal, who is not here today, but on his behalf and in the leadership, we are taking this, and the Government of India, Ministry of Home Affairs, to all of you. This warm welcome to all of you, all the distinguished participants who have joined so far, and they would be joining in another 10 minutes time or 15 minutes time with all the resource persons. Thank you very much, Dr. Balu, for taking this initiative and joining hands with the SCM RIPA. And SCM RIPA, we will, I promise you that with this support, we'll definitely have much larger program ahead also in future. So thank you very much once again, Dr. Ida. You have been my colleague for long, and still I respect you in the same way that kind of initiative which you took. Thank you very much for this grand initiatives. Thank you very much. Over to Dr.
Thank you, Professor Santosh Kumar, sir. Yeah, thank you so much, Professor Santosh Kumar, sir, for giving your valuable time. I know since you was busy in the morning also, you have conducted a South Asian level webinar, and without denying, and you have accepted our invitation, and thank you for joining in this webinar. And you have shared the background of Child-Centric Disaster Risk Reduction Center and also set up an agenda. Thank you so much, sir, for your kind information. As of now, we have 161 participants. I hope many more will join.
I would like to take your leave because I had to attend a meeting with the MHA currently. So just I'm taking excuse and afforded. I'm taking excuse from this panel. I may join in between. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so
Maybe
much.
during holiday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Now I request Dr. Ira Patnakar to introduce the Assistant Director of HCM for inaugural address. Please. Over to you, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Balu. Could you please show the PPT also? I'll start meanwhile. Don't worry.
Okay.
Before we invite Mr. Venkatesh Sharma, sir, for his inaugural address, I would like to give a brief about him. And Mr. Venkatesh Sharma is an IAS officer of 1994 batch. In the 26 years of his experience, he has held various significant positions in the government of Rajasthan, including his posting in the Chief Minister's office. Besides his other achievements, being an alumni of Sainik School Chittorgarh and his post-graduation in economics with a gold medal, these reflect in his working with a focus on integrity, professionalism, and humility. Mr. Sharma is deeply passionate about both education and training and the role that they can play in the dissemination of knowledge and pursuit of service. With his current posting as head of our institute, HCM RIPA, he has been leading us all to believe that success calls for a combination of core values and determination of the individual himself or herself. Positive thinking, belief in oneself, and faith in humanity are the values that drive his passion and keep him committed and energized. We are so happy to have you, sir. We welcome you and we request you for your inaugural address, sir. Please, sir.
Thank you, Iraji. Am I audible? आवाज आ रही है मेरी?
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you all of you, and good evening all participants. सबसे पहले at the outset, let me express my thanks and gratitude to Major General Manoj from the NIDM, Professor Santosh, Professor Balu, and all my colleagues and participants panelists here for giving us this opportunity, actually to giving us this our institute, the HCM RIPA Udaipur, this opportunity to collaborate and to work with the National Institute on a very major issue, rather something which we normally tend to forget, or normally which does not come to our mind occasionally on the cuff. But then this is very important one, and when I got this opportunity, when Iraji told me such and such thing is being worked out, I was more than eager to collaborate, and I wish, as Professor Santosh has said earlier, we wish to cooperate further. We are looking forward to much more collaborations on various topics of interest, of webinars and of courses with the NIDM, so that we can spread this message. Spread the message of disaster management. We can spread the awareness of disaster management. We can actually, make people aware what's going on and how they can actually, we can actually survive, or we can actually make our lives better and more meaningful. Thank you very much. And with these words, when we are looking at this topic of climate change and environment, normally when we discuss about climate change, we discuss environment and various types of disasters. But then focusing on children is something which actually sent my mind tickling. And I started thinking how actually the children are getting affected as far as climate change is concerned. Climate change has been one of my topics of work because I am a practicing field forester. And we have been moving around the forest areas, stopping, going to villages, speaking with tribals, looking at their plight, looking at the situations, how things have been changing in the last 20 years. And I have myself witnessed while going through these forest areas and actually implementing variety of forest works, forest activities where we conduct. And I can tell you with my experience, the most vulnerable communities, and even in literature we define them, women and children probably are the most vulnerable sections of the society across the board, not only in the villages and rural areas, but also in the urban areas. But then the gravity of plight or the gravity of their vulnerability in terms of health, in terms of education, in terms of their social security, in terms of their food security, it grows manifold when we actually move out of the urban areas and move towards the villages. And then if we go deeper inside the forest areas, where instead of villages, compact villages or complex hamlets, we actually find people living in single thatched roof huts. They are spread over many areas on the hilltops, and there you find a lone lady and a few children playing. And then when you look at them, then actually you can feel that concern, what is happening around. And therefore I would like to congratulate NIDM for taking up this issue of children-centric disaster reduction and measures and spreading awareness about it. It's very important. Actually, when recently, if you we have been having a lot of literature, a lot of newspaper literature on hunger and food insecurity, and then child wasting and stunting and dwarfing. And those are statistics, macro statistics, which we have a look at. But when we look at the micro level information from the village itself, the situation actually it's very alarming, and we actually need to concentrate more on that. Children, not only from the point of view of the climate change effect in terms of agriculture production, or in terms of water scarcity which is happening, or in terms of deforestation. Deforestation and livelihood in the rural areas, they go hand in hand. So if you have more forest areas which are getting degraded, not only because of the climate change impacts of temperature and water and rainfall, but also because of the livelihood pressures which is being created in the rural areas, which also lead to a certain bit of deforestation. All this is getting compounded day by day, and that we can slowly witness. This is something of a disaster which does not happen. Normally we tend to say disaster which happens in a very short period of time, a very short span of time, say floods and famines, or even the cyclones and typhoons. They happen for a short period, but this disaster is something which has been happening for now almost a decade now. It's a very slow growing disaster which actually is not perceptible. So when we are focusing on this issue, and when an institute like the National Institute, like the NIDM, it focuses on this issue, then there is a lot of hope that the future planning processes, that the future policy initiatives, which actually try to focus on women and children as such. So I personally feel it's a very good initiative taken by NIDM, and our institute being a part of such an initiative, it actually gives me an hope, and it encourages us to collaborate more and more with NIDM on such issues. Children, not only from the perspective of what is happening to children and how we can take care of that. Professor Santosh Kumar had made a reference. Children actually are the custodian of the future health and wealth of the nation. They are also the generation which actually has to take care of the climate change adaptation mitigation. Climate change is something which has been happening for some time now, but adaptation and mitigation processes will require a lot of time. And it is the children now, kids now who are in the age of say 0 to 10 years, which will after in a 10 period of time or 15 year period of time, they will be youth of the nation. And they will be holding that they will be flag bearers of all the policy making. They will be flag bearers of the implementation processes. They will be there as a pressure group to actually create an impact in the field. So when we talk about children now, I am more enthused not only from the point of view of taking care of children now, but because they are going to create impact in the future. Our generation is almost we are wearing down the line now. The younger generation has to take care of the safeguard the interests of the nation as far as the resources, the natural resources, the climate change impact is concerned. And from that point of view, I consider that this seminar or this webinar is going to create more awareness. It will enrich our thinking as far as this thing is concerned. And I am more than eager to listen to the study and research and the assessment done by Dr. Urvashi and Dr. Helen and all the other panelists, and the discussions which we'll have. And I suppose with so much participants now, the discussion should also be that much enriching, so that we actually gain those knowledge and we gain those bits of insight to work ahead for the future. So thank you all very much for giving me this opportunity, and I am actually more eager to listen to all of you. Thank you, Balu, thank you, Iraji, thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Ira ma'am, would you like to add anything here?
Yes, please. Thank you so much, Venkatesh, sir. And I think the kind of direction that you have provided and the kind of insight that you have provided in your inaugural address, and that would form a base for the deliberations that we would be continuing with Dr. Urvashi and Dr. Helen. Thank you so much, sir, on behalf of, again, since we are doing it together, of course, and I have been to NIDM for many courses, so it is also like one institute I'm closely associated to. So on behalf of NIDM and our institute, thank you so much, sir, for the inaugural address. Thank you so much, Venkatesh, sir. Thank you. Over to you, Balu, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Now it's time to invite our speaker. It's my privilege to introduce Ms. Urvashi, who is a Program Officer, Risk and Resilience in UNICEF Uttar Pradesh. She was trained as a social scientist and have completed doctoral degree in sociology in 2018. She was trained on climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction from University of Heidelberg, Germany. And overall, she has 18 years of work experience in the social development sector. Of these 12 years of work experience in realm of climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction. The key strengths of her is disaster risk reduction, climate change, environment, research, monitoring and evaluation, and program management. Worked in many bilateral and multilateral organizations such as UNICEF, German Development Corporation, WHO, CRO, European Commission, Johns Hopkins University, and Center for Communication Program, BBC World Service Trust. With this brief introduction, now I request Dr. Ms. Urvashi Chandra to start the session. Let me enable you as a presenter. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And first, at the outset, let me again thank NIDM and HCM RIPA for giving UNICEF UP the opportunity to present the work that we have been doing on climate change, environment, and children. I'll just share my presentation. Just a minute. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, please.
So just to give a context that many of us must be aware that India is highly vulnerable to climate change. In fact, it is the 5th most climate affected country in the world. And in 2018, this went up. It ranked 5th, whereas in 2017, it was ranked 14. So it went up by 9 levels. Also, it has recorded the highest number of fatalities in 2018 due to climate change. While we talk about Uttar Pradesh, it ranks number 3 with regards to disaster risk index, the scorecard which has been developed by the Ministry of Home Affairs in 2018, and 20th as far as the disaster resilience index is concerned. So this gives us the context that within India, UP is very vulnerable to the disasters, and the resilience level is much lower because of the capacities and resources being lower. Now, moving straight to the most vulnerable groups or affected by climate change, as has already been mentioned by all the esteemed speakers earlier on, children and women are highly vulnerable. And while we are at UNICEF, our mandate is to work with children and deliver on the core commitments for children in humanitarian situations. Our focus is on enabling children to be better prepared to deal with all disasters whether be it natural or human induced. So when we talk about the Child Vulnerability Index, which is composed of four parameters, including age group, children not going to school, children working, and infant mortality rate, we find that Uttar Pradesh is the highest as far as the Child Vulnerability Index is concerned. It is 4.61, followed by Bihar, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Odisha, and Chhattisgarh. The data is again from the disaster scorecard, which was developed by the Ministry of Home Affairs in 2018. Why are children highly vulnerable to climate change? This is because of their given physical size as well as their physiological and cognitive immaturity, and more so because they are highly dependent on caregivers for safety and protection. Children have higher exposure to environmental hazards, and also they are more likely to develop severe infection as well as experience complications in case they develop some kind of infection due to less developed immunity systems. So given this, the focus, as I mentioned to you, UNICEF focuses on children, and when we talk about climate change, environment and children, we looked at how do children really get affected by climate change. So this is from the UNICEF UK climate change report. This exactly tells us that because of climate change, there is a change in temperature as well as precipitation, which in turn leads to changing extreme weather events as well as ecosystem. There is a change in the habitat and ecosystem. More frequent and severe droughts are witnessed. At times, there are more intense rainfall. We've all experienced in the recent past that rainfall happens, but it is quite heavy in lesser number of days. So because of these factors, there is an issue of water stress. And because of water stress, agriculture gets affected, which in turn leads to morbidity and mortality due to decline in food security and income. Then as far as changing temperature and precipitation is concerned, there is also a change in the pattern of diseases. So morbidity and mortality due to non-communicable diseases has been increasing. Communicable disease patterns have witnessed a change. Very often there have been studies that have shown that malaria, dengue, which were not at the time evident in mountainous regions or in the hilly regions, now we do find cases of malaria and dengue even in those areas. Then because of water stress, waterborne diseases are on the increase as well. This in turn affects a livelihood and assets and results in child poverty, increase in child poverty. And then if we look at the real impact on children, then because of the changing conditions, because of higher level of morbidity and mortality, child morbidity and mortality has been increasing, malnutrition has been increasing. Then inequality, as Dr. Santosh Kumar mentioned, not only do children in different age groups experience different impacts, but also across different levels of economic strata. So those who are in the poorer sections are more vulnerable than those who are in the higher economic grades. Then there is a issue of child protection on the rise. Child trafficking has been increasing because of decline in food security as well as loss of assets and livelihood. Also, there are cases where child marriage has also been increasing, though maybe not reported at many times, but there has been a change in the child marriage. There has been an increase in child marriage cases, and then more and more children are dropping out of school. Again, which we have also recently observed that COVID, of course, because of COVID, schools were closed, but then many studies are showing that there may be a possibility that once schools reopen, many children would drop out of school because of the fear of this COVID continuing, and therefore many families may not send their children back to school. So what needs to be done? The important question is, how do we prepare children so that they can be better equipped to deal with the issues related to climate change and in turn be more resilient to disasters? So in UNICEF, we have been focusing on reducing vulnerability, and we are working with children and mentoring them as change agents. And here the issues that are affected, which we focus on, are the fundamental rights as reflected in Article 12, Convention on the Rights of the Child. And then UNICEF primarily works with young people so that their voices can also be heard. As was mentioned earlier on, that it is not just that they are vulnerable, They also have good ideas. They know, I mean, many times their ideas, they're very creative in their thought process. And maybe we need to work with them and capture their voices through creative platforms and then advocate for these to be integrated into policies of government through through our esteemed organizations like this child-centered department of NIDM and other such departments. So children do play a key role in addressing climate-related risks, and also we can guide them to be promoting environmentally sustainable environments and setting an example for their communities. On ground, what we have been working with the government of UP on is this concept of environment smart schools or safe green schools. So while we do cover the aspects of school safety, that is safe schools, which comes under disaster management, we have also integrated the element of green. And then we've taken this aspect from NCERT. In fact, Government of India, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change has been running a program of eco clubs, which in many states is very functional, while in many others like UP, it is not so functional. So we are working with the government to strengthen this concept of eco clubs as well as push for more environment smart schools. This just gives us a definition of what a green school is, and basically what we are looking at children as eco protectors in green schools by using various platforms for promoting environment conservation, DRR, water and sanitation issues, hygienic practices, and child protection measures. Specifically, we have been working in many districts of Uttar Pradesh. Many of them, most of them are hazard prone as well as aspirational. Aspirational because they are backward in their socioeconomic indicators. And we have been working at school as well as community level with children and focal teachers as well as key community members to prepare children as environment ambassadors. What does that mean? It exactly means that we are looking at 4 pillars under the concept of environment ambassador. A child that is who is an environment ambassador would be knowledgeable about issues related to climate change, environment conservation, and DRR. Then we train them that they can take simple actions like it's not just enough to plant trees, but to nurture those trees, to ensure that these trees actually grow, these saplings actually grow into trees. Also form nature clubs in schools, learn about the various effects of, the various benefits of the different types of trees and medicinal plants. Then push for a green area within their school. Then use waste management or then water recycling or rainwater harvesting, the various concepts of recycling. So different elements which we skill these children to take simple actions on mitigation, adaptation, and environment conservation. So once they are skilled, then we start ensuring that these children start taking these simple actions, be it at the school level or the community level. Examples, some of which I have already referred to. Some others like recycling paper, saying no to plastic, waste segregation, composting, using organic waste for kitchen gardening, water conservation, etc. Once they are knowledgeable, skilled, and are taking simple actions, then they move to the level of mentoring their own peers or other children in their communities and schools and preparing them to be such change agents. And in this way, a ripple down effect is advocated for. So basically, the elements of an environment smart school are sanitation, clean toilets, separate toilets for girls and boys, proper hand washing units, waste management focusing on segregation, compost pits, 3 hours of recycling, reuse and reduce, water conservation, ensuring there are no leaking water taps or hand pumps, ensuring that they push their managements to get these repaired, as well as in some schools, if it's possible, to focus on rainwater harvesting. Rajasthan has very good examples of this. And then watershed management. And then moving on to energy conservation, we also try to train some of the senior students on how to calculate the footprint, the carbon footprint, that is the kind of energy consumption that happens within their school premises, or upgrade to efficient renewables as such as simple, LED bulbs, etc. So make a shift and push, advocate for such kind of renewables within their schools. And then the overarching being the green cover, because we do have to ensure that the green cover or the forest aspect is definitely covered here, but also training them on what are the various benefits of the various trees that are there and what they are planting, and also ensuring that trees which can be planted in that specific soil should be done. Many times we've also noticed that there is not much effort that is given to train these children on which plant can be planted in which type of soil. So this kind of training also we are pushing for. And then the overarching umbrella being the school disaster risk reduction plan, as all schools are mandated to have a school disaster management plan. These are some of the indicators which we measure through while we talk about an environment smart school. And this, while we talk about the DRR or the disaster risk reduction elements in a smart school, the green cover, we also push these children to carry out a hazard hunt within their school premises to see what are the potential hazard areas, and then to work with the focal teachers on bringing out a simple school disaster management plan, addressing those hazards in terms of what they can do, what the teachers can do, and what the management has to do. Then, as I already mentioned, not just planting the saplings, but also protecting the plant and nurturing them. And then identifying the species, and also finally having a small nursery within the school premises. This is something which I've already spoken about, a little more detail in terms of waste management, sanitation, water conservation, energy conservation, and the DRR plan based on hazard hunt and school disaster management plan. So till now, that is this program which we have been working with the government, and with government I mean we have been working primarily with the Relief Commissioner's Office in Uttar Pradesh, as well as the Department of Environment, Forest and Climate Change and Education. And from January 2018 till date, we have been able to cover about 11,030 children across about 10-15 districts of Uttar Pradesh, and train them to be change agents for environment conservation, safe schools and DRR. So as this is all from me as of now, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Urvasi Chandra, for a presentation on climate change. One question as of now, Mr. Alexander has raised that is it possible for UNICEF to strongly recommend to the central government to introduce WASP and climate change session as part of textbook from lower classes onwards?
Yes, I could. I mean, because I am in UP, I can advocate it at the state level, but probably I can speak with my DRR Delhi section and ensure that we advocate it at the national level, so that it then comes down to all the states as well.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. As of now, there is no any question. Maybe in future, if any questions are there, you can join also at the end. Shall we move to now the presentation? Yeah. Just a minute. Now it's my privilege to introduce Dr. Helen Christiana, who is an assistant professor of psychology, counselor, and psychotherapist from Sri Meenakshi Government Arts College for Women from Madurai, Tamil Nadu. She worked as editor for IQL software and written nearly 227 articles on health and medicine for an online journal. And so she coordinated for students counseling cell in Sri Meenakshi Government Arts College. Education, stress management, and work-life balance at National Institute of Mental Health and Neuroscience, Bangalore. And she's also a nodal officer for Vriksham for training College of Teachers on psychoeducational skills. She also rendered family counseling services for victims of domestic violence and cyber at the office of the Superintendent of Police, Madurai. With this brief introduction about her, now I'm handing over to Dr. Christian Helena.
Thank you, Dr. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Balu, for the wonderful words. And can I have the PPT, please?
Yeah, please, ma'am. Just
Yeah, sure. So I take this opportunity to thank Professor Santosh Kumar and Manoj Kumar ji for this wonderful opportunity, and all the panelists, and a very good afternoon to all the participants who are here in this platform to discuss on climate change, environment, and children. So we all, in recent times, we are experiencing extreme weather conditions in India as well as in global level. I think NIDM has made a good initiative at this period of time to know more about what really a climate change is and what it is, how it is interacting with the children and health, especially the physical, psychological, and psychosocial development of children. And thank you. And next one, please. So for the first few slides, we will rush up to see what actually a weather or a climate or an atmosphere is. So you can see, you can read the definition by yourself. And in recent time, we were talking about human activities contribute much to the environmental changes or climatic conditions, and weather has been erratically changing day by day. And in recent times, you can see throughout India, starting from Kashmir, Delhi, or the extreme Cape Comorin or Kanyakumari, or whatever you call it as, we experience a drastic change in temperature, weather condition, and as long as this weather is going to get retained for a longer period of time, you call it as a climate. So climate is therefore can be thought as a long-term summary. Next slide, please. Long-term summary of weather condition, and this average conditions, variability of these conditions contribute much to children health, and that is what we are going to see in the next few moments. And what you're seeing here is the two definitions that is given by the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So both of them, they talk about the human activity which directly or indirectly alters the global atmosphere. So it is either human activity, or apart from that, there are some natural calamities or natural events that is occurring throughout the globe that is contributing for the climatic changes also, whether it is a welcoming one and or a non-welcoming one. We have to take into account what this climatic changes is going to have an impact on the overall population and especially the children. Next one, please. And as we understand, the atmosphere connects all the weather systems, and this global climatic system, which includes the ecosystem, agriculture, livelihood, or the settlement of people of a specific region. So these are all the things that is very much dependent on the climatic factors. So as far as Dr. Urvasi was talking much about what is happening around and what will be the enhancement programs to make a kind of awareness among children. But what actually the future holds for the children is that what we see here is the global average temperature is going to drastically increase in the coming time, and especially they are expecting 1.5 to 2 degrees will be increasing, and the oceans will become more acidic, and we are going to experience extreme hot weathers, heat waves, and we experience actually that is heavy precipitation, cyclones in recent times as far as Indian context is concerned. And as the precipitation or the rainfall, it actually is going to increase in the coming time, and it's going to affect the subtropical land areas. So whenever there is a huge impact on the water ecosystem or in the land ecosystem, it's indirectly going to affect the human population as well. And these cyclones, which are taking a toll on the lives of the people, it's going to become more intense, and the larger peak winds, it's going to have a huge impact on agriculture and other industrial development also. And as far as India is concerned, in recent times, India is much more dependent on industrialization, agriculture processing, as well as the huge population explosion. So connecting all these parameters together, whenever these developments are interrupted by natural calamities or disaster, the first emerging population that is going to get affected is only the children, because they are going to hold the future. So what we as the whole population or educationist or industrialist, what we can do for the development of children. Next slide, please. Next one, please. So as you see here, we are talking much on the greenhouse gases or the ozone depletion or whatever it is. So ozone is a atmospheric strata that actually protects the Earth's surface. And this greenhouse gases, which includes water vapor, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, or methane, which has to escape into the space, is retained on the surface, and this is actually increasing the temperature of the Earth, which we call it as global warming. So this ozone depletion, which is being caused due to human activity and also deforestation, as Sharmaji was rightly pointing out, deforestation or forest fires or depletion of forest in general has been contributing much for the ozone depletion. And this heating of the Earth's atmosphere keeps on changing the or bringing in the climatic changes. So the environment which we are going to offer for the children is becoming more and more dangerous. So this natural greenhouse effect due to human activity has been contributing much for the atmospheric heat, and whenever more is heat is retained on the surface, naturally the ecosystem, the habitat, including the animals, trees or forest, whatever it is, including the human habitual areas, is going to get affected. And that is why this is one of the major reasons where there is ozone depletion or the greenhouse effect and retention of atmospheric greenhouse gases on the Earth's surface, which is causing El Nino and La Nina effects. That is a constant increase in the surface temperature of the sea, or there is much drastic reduction in the temperature of the sea surfaces. Both these effects, El Nino and La Nina, is bringing in a lot of climatic changes into us. Next slide, please. Next one, please. Also global warming, the Earth is becoming more and more warmer, and it's making a lot of unwanted, unwelcoming, erratic changes in the climatic conditions, and this environmental impact may result in prolonged droughts and heat waves, and there will be melting of ice caps, and glaciers might get retreated, and there is rise in the sea levels, resulting in the merging of the sea and the land. Many of the land surfaces may lose its occupancy, and there may be acidification of oceans, which will in turn affect the marine life cycle. And what this environmental impact is going to do with the development of the children. The next slide, please. So all these changes, all these climatic conditions will, this picture is actually depicting what is actually happening in and around India as well as in the global context. So the atmospheric circulation, the increase in the greenhouse gases, and the increased concentration might result in the melting of glaciers and more of precipitation, heat waves, floods, droughts, and these are all the things we are experiencing in recent times in India. And these conditions, this extreme climatic condition, is naturally the first population to be affected is only the growing or developing children, physically, mentally, and economically, as well as socially. Next slide, please. So there are certain key factors that are to be affected due to climate change. Number one is the agriculture. And this agriculture might result in, whenever there is a reduction in the production of food, there is insecurity in food. And naturally, whenever the agricultural sector is going to get affected, as Dr. Urvashi pointed out, there may be issues of malnutrition, there may be issues of poverty, and these are all the linked characteristics. And this results in food security and safety. Malnutrition becomes a question. The coastal systems may get affected, which will in turn affect the livelihood of people who are dependent on the coastal system, and especially the children. And water security and safety becomes a big question. Even though there is a lot of precipitation or rain, drinking water becomes a big question. And it's going to affect human settlement and the infrastructure. Many people get dislocated from one area to another. Whenever there is higher flood, people are getting dislocated. They are moving to a safer camps by the government. Even though the government is ready to provide all the necessities for the families or the children or the entire population, the big question that the children become the stakeholders of all these huge impacts. And natural disasters, climate induced disasters, and children are most affected with infectious disease. And this is going to reflect on the economic and socio-cultural resources. And women and the education of children. We may ask a question: in these conditions of extreme climatic condition or natural disaster, what is the necessity for giving importance for education? Because education is the primary thing. It is not a school education or a college education, but making the children to learn to face the challenges of the natural disasters or extreme climatic condition has become mandatory in the recent time. Next slide, please. So the climate change has a huge impact on the health of children, because the growth and development from the infancy to adolescence make them more sensitive for the environmental hazards. And the normal physical or emotional development of the children will make them grow into a stronger adults. So whenever these children undergo a kind of traumatic conditions, whenever they experience this kind of natural disasters or climatic condition, their behavior patterns also change. There might be a provoking behavior, or there might be a kind of antisocial behavior whenever a child is experiencing food insecurity or malnutrition or a poor socio-economic condition. So this unique behavior, a healthy behavior of a child, is dependent on how the environment or climatic changes give them the basic needs. As the Abraham Maslow's theory states, the basic need is food, shelter. And if these two things are not happening for a child, how can we expect the future adults of a country, especially a developing country like India, to hold a better position when they grow into an adult? And the climatic change will lead to an increase in frequency, severity, and duration of extreme weather events. And this makes the children's mental health a big question. And whenever this kind of disastrous condition separates them from the caregivers, whenever there is a storm, flood, when they are separated from their parents or caregivers, naturally they become deprived of nutrition, shelter, hygiene, and clothing. So as the theory of Abraham Maslow states, nutrition, shelter, hygiene, and clothing becomes a big question. And this is the most dangerous condition, where the future population of this world and future population of India is going to experience a big challenge with reference to climatic change. Next slide, please. Starting from a toddler or a newborn infant, starting from the food, or whether it is industrialization, or it is agriculturalization, or whether it is a climatic condition that is changing throughout the world, it is not only happening in India, but a smaller change that is happening somewhere in the world is going to affect. as what we are experiencing now, somewhere in the world started the infection of coronavirus, and how it is making a huge impact on the children. Even though there are online classes, but the education system is becoming a big question. Next slide, please. So children are most vulnerable to climatic changes. And you can see here their immature physiology, their developmental state, their physical condition, because starting from the hormonal status or whatever it is.
Dr. Helen, sorry.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yes, sorry, you had means we couldn't hear you. Now it is okay.
Yeah, I had a call in between, so I have to
Sorry.
decline. Yeah,
No,
yes,
it's okay.
ma'am.
Okay. Please.
Okay, yeah. So their immature physiology, because they are in a developing state physically, this kind of climatic conditions and deprivation of the basic need might interfere with their normal metabolism. But what we are giving in the form of nutrition may not be sufficient for their complete development or the growth. So the physical development becomes a big question. Then the second one is the higher exposure to contaminated air, food, water, and per unit of body weight. Sometimes we see children based on their height, weight, or their body weight, the proportion, and all that. If you see a data, we had a data on school children, and most of the school children, these school children are from, especially from government schools, and they are also from poor economic status. And when we took the entire data, all of them were underweight, all of them were deprived of basic nutrients, and this becomes a question. When we were looking into the environment which they are living in, is they are coming from a poor socio-economic background, and they don't have good air to breathe, they don't have good water to drink. And this becomes a question. When the basics is becoming a big question, how can we question about giving them a kind of good education? And then, as I said, the unique behavior pattern, they were actually having a kind of psychological insecurity, and they are not ready to accept people whenever they are offered something. And this kind of insecure condition, physically and psychologically, makes them socially vulnerable to a kind of negative behavior, and their dependency on the caregivers. They have to dependent be on their parents or someone who is taking care of them. So as long as these caregivers are being in a protective condition, or they are getting enough money, they are able to give good a kind of food or nutrients or whatever it is for these children. When this is not available, when the parent or the caregivers loses their job, loses their income due to these natural calamities, as for what we are seeing for the past 8 or 9 months. So loss of job, loss of money, loss of socio-economic status is indirectly, or I should say directly, reflects on the children. So these are all the things, their immature physiology or metabolic variations, or the incomplete development or undernourishment, or their exposure to contaminated air, food, or whatever it is. So these causes, whatever you're seeing here, is the increased heat stress or decreased air quality, and disease pattern is much more changing. There are a common kind of ailments, but the disease is something different. The causative agent is something very different. So we have to look into this, all into these things. So pediatric consultants, pediatric doctors are uh, are actually experiencing a kind of confusion how to evaluate the clinical status of a child with common kind of symptoms, but the causative agent, whether it is a bacteria or a virus or some physical reasons or chemical reasons or socio-economic condition, whatever it is, we have to work together to identify why the children are not getting enough food or safety or a kind of good water or all these things. Okay, next slide, please. So it is also having a huge impact on all these climatic conditions or erratic changes is having a huge impact on the mental health also. So the consequences will be direct consequences which will be resulting in post traumatic stress disorders or social phobia, whether they don't have much confidence on the society, which will uh, uh, because society is the one which is going to make the children grow into a fruitful adult. Now, social phobia is becoming a big threat to their development, and this is causing them to land up in a kind of depression. And indirect consequences includes loss of land, fight, and migration. And we also see a lot of migrant workers who are moving from one part of India to another, carrying their children on their back, on their shoulders, and even pregnant women were crossing, and many of them died due to lack of basic needs. And violence, change of social, ecological, and economical, cultural environment. And the consequences of climatic changes also will have a huge impact on the somatic or the bodily health, which will indirectly affect their mental health. And whenever a child grows with a psychological insecurity, naturally the consequence is going to be more on the future social development. Next slide, please. So direct, indirect consequences, physical, mental, and social health is going to have a huge kind of reflex on the children, as we are experiencing constant flux in the environmental changes. We might think that, say, what is going to happen to the children? We are giving enough food and all that, and government is also ready to give them food and shelter and all that. But recent data that is given on Economic Times or the Times of India, or the data given by the UNICEF, gives a fair idea to all of us that all these direct indirect consequences might reflect, all the natural disasters might reflect on the psychosocial and the metabolic development of a child. Next slide, please. So a child, whenever it is exposed to a kind of this climatic changes, their vulnerability makes them to face the extreme climatic changes, like exposure to allergens. Exposure to allergens include unwanted chemicals that is mixing up in the air, and this climatic conditions increases drought, floods, and heat stress, and also some kind of weather events such as floods causes make a child to get exposed to mold growths, bacterial and viral infection. And also there is a lot of consequences such as pollen grains. We can't imagine, because our children are living in a safe environment. And when I get exposed to, when I went to some areas of Madurai district to see how these children are working, whenever during this pandemic area, it is really heart-wrenching to know that many of the children are deprived of the basic needs which has to be provided to them. And extreme heat condition, one day we are experiencing extreme cold and rain, and the other day it is extreme heat. So whenever the children are getting exposed to heat, extreme heat, these heat waves will have a huge impact on the metabolic activity of the children. And the extreme I mean the rain or floods or heat waves, sometimes it impacts, it's having an indirect impact on the insect and tick related diseases. And as Dr. Urvashi and Sharmaji pointed out, there may be huge increase in the number of malaria, dengue, and now dengue is in the higher rate, even though the Department of Health is working together with the disaster management to reduce the effect of all these diseases. Still there is increase in the number of all these diseases. And contaminated water. Next slide, please. Next one, please. So as UNICEF, next one, please. So UNICEF has estimated at least 175 million children are hit by climate disasters every year. And here comes the question: as an individual, as an adult of this country, what we are going to contribute for this. Next slide, please. So if you see the climatic hazards and the development of the children, there is a data. Next slide, please. Data is being given by UNICEF, which states that chronically poor, disaster-prone areas of India have children. At least 90% of the children are affected due to this kind of climatic changes. And if you see the age group of 0 to 1 year, 33% of the children is getting affected who are under the age of 1 year, and approximately 11% of the children are losing their lives due to diarrheal infections. And there is a data which has been given by Government of India, Department of Health, which states that we are much concentrating on corona, where we have lost some lives. That is a true fact to be accepted. But apart from that, in India, every year at least 4.5 lakhs of people are dying due to cardiac diseases, and at least 2.5 lakh children, including the adolescents and the younger age group, are dying due to just diarrheal infection. Is it not a question of security and safety that is prevailing in India? And if you see, there are few disasters. There are areas which experience only few disasters, and even among them, you can see up to 50% of the population is getting affected where there is fewer disasters, which means that an average of all the children is getting affected irrespective of climatic changes. So apart from climatic changes, there are some environmental issues which need to be addressed to have or to encourage or to enhance the health of children. Next slide, please. So you can see in the next slide, average of 2.3 billion children are being affected throughout the global level due to this disastrous condition. And you can see there, India is which is having a population of 18 years of age. We have a higher younger population. You can see India is much highlighted, which means that we are having a higher number of children population who are under the risk of climatic changes. Next slide, please. So extreme drought conditions. Next one, please. Extreme drought conditions where even there is no drop of water to drink, or plantations to look after, or there is a complete absence of agriculture. How can we expect a child to become a socially responsible adult? Next slide, please. And the data says that nearly 160 million children live in areas of high or extremely high drought severity exposed condition. And again, if you see the condition of India, it has been highlighted. It is high to medium. Next slide, please. Education has become a big question due to extreme climatic conditions in India. Next one, please. And even lose their lives, home, habitat, their families, friends, parents, or whatever it is. And this is the condition where 500 million of children live in extremely high flood occurrence in zones. And again, you can see India, which is having nearly around South Asian countries, they are having 340 million people. Overall, they have been affected. And India comes again in the range of high to medium, where the flood occurrence is going to increase in the years to come, in the next few years to come. Next slide, please. And in the next slide, you will see children where there is a lot of pollution due to plastic accumulation, non-degradable accumulation, and there will be more accumulation of metal, toxic substances, which is going to retain in the soil for billions of years together, or probably millions of years together, which is going to ruin the habitat. And there you can see in the concurrent picture, you can see children playing with all the e-waste, and the water the ditch or the drainage, which is getting mixed with the natural rivers or lakes or ponds, and which is going to again enter into the oceanic population or the region and going to affect the marine life and the cycle in the food chain, where all these minute toxic substances is going to get accumulated in the human system. Next slide, please. Next one, please. So in the next slide, here you are seeing all the thrown away waste which has been accumulated, and as Dr. Urvashi stated, education has become a question. Even though education is being provided to the children, she said you can expect more dropouts because child labor is increasing, child trafficking is increasing, because all these children are being forcibly entering into such kind of environmental conditions where they are getting a little amount of income to take hold of their family. And the next big question is, apart from land and water pollution, air pollution is becoming a big question. You can see India, according to its population, rating in the second rank. And the next slide, please. And in the next slide, you will see in the recent time, the capital of India experiencing high unwanted population in the air, where it becomes unsuitable for breathing. Next slide, please. Next one, please. So here you see a process called bioaccumulation and biomagnification, where parts per million concentration of any toxic substances, say it is a mercury or any kind of metal or any kind of cancer inducing substances. There are many more which is causing pollution in the water, air and land. So this accumulation, where it increases stage by stage in the food chain, the process is called bioaccumulation. And biomagnification, at each level of the food chain, the concentration of this bioaccumulating substances is going to increase, and finally it reaches the end of the food chain, where the human consumption, which is actually encouraging the bioaccumulated processes, might lead to a lot of psychological, physiological and metabolic disorders, especially among children. Next slide, please. And this hazards of bioaccumulation and biomagnification, here you can see a minute concentration of microplastic, biofouling, and these contaminants get absorbed into the metabolic system of animal system, and consumption of, here you can see from this accumulated processes or the accumulated substances is being transferred from one level of food chain to the other food chain. And you can see in the food web, food chain is involving only one trophic level, but food chain or food web, it involves a big population, where it includes forest, excuse where it includes all sort of ecosystem, whether it be land, water or forest, which will ultimately affect the human population, especially the children, which will be resulting in a lot of diseases like skin irritation, respiratory problem, cardiovascular diseases, digestive issues, reproductive effects and cancer. And one thing for sure I can say is, in recent time, a lot of younger generation and younger people are suffering from respiratory, digestive and reproductive effects. And in the recent 1 month, I was talking with a senior professor of Madurai Medical College, and he was talking about the number of children getting increased day by day due to digestive system. And one more doctor who is working with a reproductive kind of thing, and she was talking that whatever the effect that is been implementing on the children due to lack of nutrients or getting exposed to toxic substances, which is a resultant of this bioaccumulation and biomagnification, is making impotency at a higher rate in the coming generation. So these are all the things. Next slide, please. So these are all the things which we need to take into account. With these two pictures, which will be comparatively telling you what will be the potential impact of drought, water stress on children. So this data says actually the drought and water stress will have a higher potential in increasing the post-traumatic stress disorders or the human trafficking, increased trafficking, orphanhood, and it might cause some fatality also. There will be increase in infectious diseases and school attendance will come out, and all these processes will result in poor. This is actually happening due to lack of water or poor quality of water, and sometimes it also causes a kind of social stress, and many children who are homeless in recent time are vulnerable for all these kind of negative social happenings that is uh, running around us. And also whenever there is a lot of flood or severe storm, as how we are experiencing now, there may be injuries, there may be child labor, and there is a lot of drowning process where it claims a lot of lives, and children they are succumbing to diarrheal and other diseases. And this is being caused due to the destruction of health facilities and lack of stock of drugs, non-availability of drugs in primary healthcare centers, and there is absence of skilled healthcare professionals, and there is no enough water supply and sanitation services in some areas of the society, and waterborne diseases, whenever it is been identified, even the population is not ready to take up the available medical services that is being given by the water, stagnation of drainage water, and this actually increases a lot of questions in maintaining the children's health. Next slide, please. Next one, please. Next one slide. This shows a comparative happening of what a heat stress would cause for a child. And again, whatever we have discussed so far. So heat stress might result in loss of productivity, loss of family income, and water security becomes a big question, and the availability of food, the food production. Again, we said agriculture and industrialization is going to make a huge impact on the children and their development. And there is air pollution. There is constant increase in the air pollution, which might cause a pneumonic infection, a higher rate of infection in asthma, impaired lung development. Birth weight is comparatively lower because normal birth weight is 3 kilograms, and if you see there are low birth weight, low premature children, there is risk of miscarriage and impaired brain development. There is a lot of eye and throat infection, and this poses a long-term health risk to the children, like long-term health risk in the sense there may be ischemic heart disease, stroke, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, what you call it as COPD, cancer of trachea, bronchus, and lung. And this is for children. And all these impacts, whatever it is, whether it is a human man-made climatic impact or it is a natural disaster, the first population that is going to get affected is only the children. Can we have the next slide, please? I think I'll rush through. Okay, so this picture you can see a comparative study of the global temperature condition, rising global temperature, which has made the impact under the among the children under the age of 5. Again, you can see that India is becoming or ranking on the top. And the second diagram, you can see conditions that increase the sustainability for dengue fever. Again, you can see India is on the top. The next slide, please. Next one, please. Okay. So if you see the in the global context, or in the Indian context, we are making a lot of effort to give the younger population or the children whatever we have at the best. But the question is whether the schemes and other amenities given by the government, whether it is actually reaching the lower strata of the community. If you are not going to act now, the impact of the climate change on children is going to be irreversible. So we need to have a kind of climate agenda for children. So next slide, please. So we have to prioritize the needs of the most vulnerable population, that is the children, in climate change adaptation efforts. So whenever there is a policy change, whenever there is a agenda making among the government, let us try to get a lot of impact or a lot of feedback from the children. Let us make them to understand, or let us make them to talk more about what a climate change is. And for that, the adult population, the senior most people like us have to take a kind of awareness. We need to talk with the children. At least a simple to start from, I can talk with the children in my household. What is the importance of climate and what is actually happening around us? If you feed a child for a meal, that is not okay. But apart from that, they are the ones who are going to make a long way into this world. So as the climate is going to make a huge impact on the children, we need to make the children prepared for all these challenges. So reducing inequities among the children is, and to promote their future resilience to climate change or other disaster is becoming a big need of the hour. So whether it is through by education system or through by community programs, we can make an agenda to reach the children and to educate them or what actually a climate change is and what is actually happening around us and what has to be done and what is the essentiality if we keep on increasing this climatic changes in a negative manner. What would happen to them in the future? What agriculture is, what food is, what safe water is. So these are all the things we need to educate a child about. And also we need to provide the children and the youth about climate change education. We have to raise awareness and we have to give a lot of training, and probably, as Dr. Urvashi said, she can take the matter to the government of India, and through UNICEF, we are expecting more of positive things from the government side also, and aligning and coordinating work on climate change adaptation, making the children to get or educating them in a kind of preparedness and disaster risk reduction is very, very important at subnational levels. And we need to protect children and their families who are forced to move as a result of climate change. And we need more investigation where we include children as a part of this investigation and framing national climate plans based on their views. And these are all the climate agenda that is given by the Commonwealth and the United Nations. So next one, please. So because all these climatic changes, the huge impact of environmental changes, atmospheric changes is bringing a negative impact on the children. But all these things can be changed only when the present adult population or the as what we are doing now, it should not stop with this webinar. And whoever is been participating, take all these messages to the children who are living by your side. Make them to understand what is happening around us. Tell them what is environment and what is the importance of good food, nice water, unpolluted air, and so that they, as the ambassadors of the future, they can take the world to make the world to be a better place to live in, because children have the right to have a healthy environment. And thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. Once again, I thank the organizers, Dr. Balu and NIDM for this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for an elaborative presentation on the climate change, environment, and children, and especially how the children are being affected by air pollution and the heat waves. For all the new information for all the participants who, and let me check if any there I read out to you, ma'am. If you have any questions regarding, you can post in the chat box. As of now, there is not any question regarding this presentation, and there is one general question: is there any one question that is there any training program on disaster management? The National Staff Disaster Management is organizing a large number of training programs related to DM and also sub-teams of disaster risk management, where you can refer our training calendar on our website, www.nidm.org, and whatever the training programs you like, you may join. It's for the information of Mr. Santosh Kumar, who raised the question. Any question related to climate change and disaster impact, climate change and impact on children, please, it may be posted in the chat box.
Dr. Balu, can I say?
Would you like to add any point?
Yes,
sir.
definitely.
Please welcome, sir.
What I was firstly, I would like to congratulate Dr. Urvashi and Dr. Helen for actually flagging those very important critical issues relating to children and the impact of climate change and various environmental influences we have now. Dr. Urvashi was telling what UNICEF has been doing, and Dr. Helena has actually pointed out all the stress factors which we have on children. बच्चों में किस तरह की समस्याएं हो सकती हैं या किस तरह की problems आती हैं. What I am more concerned about, or rather what I am more interested to understand is, I have been in the government service for almost a quarter of a century now, and looking at various development programs, and we in the forest department actually, if you know the working, when we go to a village, we also try to converge the other developmental activities with the forest department works. Say, for example, when we are dealing with the villagers and taking their support for the joint forest management practices or for developing the forest area or conservation of the forest resources, what we try to do is we also incorporate some plan from the medical department, say we holding of medical camps, or we hold the animal husbandry camps, or we talk to the rural development department, so that we convert the scheme with our planning and somehow try to elicit the response of the villagers and the rural folk in managing and conserving the forest areas. I have been witnessing when we are speaking about children-centric disaster reduction, and what Dr. Helena has already very clearly pointed out. This is not something which has happened in the last few years. This has been happening for quite some time now, and gradually, what we are seeing is that the stress factors have been increasing, and in the last few years they have been increasing at a much more rapid rate. And when we look at the development policies or programs, as far as children and women are concerned, I will try to include women also as a part of the children-centric programs. Because the lady of the house or the mother and the parents, who actually will deliver what is needed for the children. There are 2-3 things very important just come out. One is about the health of the children. The other is about the nutrition of the kids, which is very important, because if until and unless we have children who are healthy and who are fed with a nutritious diet, or who actually are whose bodies are able to support these, whose body is able to counter these stress factors. So we need healthy children. We need healthy diet for them. But what we have been doing in the government policies, what I see is, we have been directly giving them the supports in terms of Poshahar. We give the ICDS department, it gives central with the support of UNICEF. They provide this Poshahar and fortified diet to the kids in the Anganwadi and schools. And we have midday meal schemes where the children are given those at the meals, regular meals which the government provides. But what I suppose is, wouldn't it be better if we can provide the enabling atmosphere and enabling environment in the village itself? For example, nutrition can be provided through plantations, through horticulture, good crops. In the forest areas, we normally villagers used to survive on the forest produce the fruits and roots and types of leaves from the forest areas, and medicinal plants can be developed there, so that just as we have been doing in COVID times. In these COVID times, when we were even during the lockdown period, I have seen even in my own house we tried to develop a kitchen garden so that kam se kam टमाटर और सब्जी तो वहां से आ जाएगा. I don't need to move out of in the market to fetch for my food. And just as Dr. Helena has been telling, market में जो food आ रहा है, it is already the toxics or the contaminants are biomagnified there in terms of arsenic or mercury, or water is polluted. So biomagnification is already happening. So, within the framework of policy initiatives, I suppose the Children Development Department or the ICDS scheme as such, which the UNICEF is probably supporting, or other schemes which we have, the creation of enabling atmosphere for to take care of the nutritional needs of the women and the children. They should also be built up in these programs itself. The ICDS should take up small plantations, kitchen gardens का लेना है, mini gardens का बनाना है, सब्जी या vegetable के लिए एक छोटा सा patch अगर village में develop हो जाता है through the help of the self-help groups, something like this, or the small forest areas can be developed which are food concentrated or food intensive forest crops, which actually provide them direct food from the natural areas. And these areas, if they conserve, then water requirement is also met. I have seen in forest areas where we have developed successful plantations. It has directly or indirectly actually influenced the health and the mental status and the well-being of the women and children. And they also provide direct livelihood opportunities. And livelihood, I can tell you, that just as we have been discussing, is a very important stress factor for women and children. We see migration of people, kids here. They go from state to state. They are taken from here and they work in the dhabas and local shops, the child labor part of it. It is only because of livelihood opportunities are not available in the rural areas. So looking at all these factors, I suppose the ICDS or the children development or children centric schemes would be better, they will give better outcome if the enabling activities are also actually involved in these schemes, and then we can take up some integrative work for the development of those areas. That is just my observation based on what we have been listening to Dr. Helen and Dr. Urvashi. Thank you. That's all. If you have to some response to say, thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. As you said, it's time for to do it a child-centric program or child-centric initiatives in all level. Definitely, we'll take your suggestion. And there is one question for Ms. Urvashi Chandra. And is emergency email impact. And the question is there any difference between disaster impacted children in a rural area and urban area?
Yes, definitely there is, because as I mentioned that the effects vary. So those who are poor, even in urban areas, it is not just equal impact across all children. Those who are in a poorer household in slum areas, they will face adverse effects more than those who are in a richer household. Definitely there is a variation. Also, it depends on what the disaster is. Now, for example, if it is in case of health emergencies, then as we've seen in COVID, it was more equalizing. In fact, many studies have shown that those from poorer households seem to be more resilient also. There is some trends on this. Of course, it's not been proved yet. So it varies and it depends on the kind of hazard we are talking about. But primarily for most hazards, urban and rural, definitely. Rural, in terms of lightning, for example, effect on rural would be more than in urban. But in terms of if we have an overcrowded slum area, then there is a fire, then of course the effect will be different from what it would be if people have houses which are dispersed. So there will be variations, not just rural urban, but within rural and within urban also.
Thank you so much. Now the question for Dr. Helen Christiana. How accumulation and
bioaccumulation and biomagnification.
How bioaccumulation and biomagnification are related?
Yeah, bioaccumulation is a process where minor quantities of any pollutant that is present either in water, land, or air gets into the body. of a specific animal which directly feeds. So this is the primary level in the food chain. When the primary level food chain has a plant or a minute organism, when it is fed by the second animals present in the second trophic level, this bioaccumulated animal, say for example, there is a fish which feeds on 10 diatoms or 10 smaller animals. So this 10 smaller animals which has nanograms, this 10 say for example one particular diatom has only 1 nanogram. When it is fed by the fish of the second trophic level, there is magnification where this 1 nanogram gets into 10 nanograms. When that fish is consumed by another animal, so that animal may not consume only 1 fish. If it is going to take 4 fishes, then there is accumulation in this particular fish will be having an accumulated concentration of 10 micrograms, and this 10 micrograms will magnify into 40 micrograms in the second trophic level or the third trophic level. So as it goes in the food chain in the higher trophic level, there is accumulation in individual organism, and this accumulated organism substance get magnified as it moves from one trophic level to another trophic level. This is how accumulation and magnification becomes a higher concentration when it reaches the top of the food chain, probably a human being or some other big animal. So bioaccumulation at a lower level has to be addressed, where I said air pollution or water pollution, even in minor quantities, will make a huge impact when it is biomagnified at the higher trophic levels of the food chain.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. There is one common question any panelist can answer this. Actually, recently, why there is increase of change in behavior among the children and change in character, especially they are not valuing the relationship. The question raised by one of the participant, anybody, any panelist.
Yeah, children not only develop physically but also emotionally. As far as this webinar is concerned, when we talk with relevance to climate change will lead to an increase in the frequency, severity, and the duration of extreme weather events will affect the children physically. Whenever I am not okay physically, even an adult will have some kind of mental and emotional disturbances. So when it comes to a child, naturally, when the child loses the care of the family, whenever there is lack of food and there is no proper social security, there will be definitely change in a child's behavior. This is with reference to climatic change. But even then, in recent time, many of the adolescents are involving in antisocial behavior or aggression or behavior in changes. See, this has to be addressed by the parents, because how I address the issue of a child, because whenever a child is in the growing period, it needs a lot of emotional care. Whenever the child is not given proper emotional care by the parents or the teachers, they will definitely involved in a kind of negative relationship. So a value system has to be taught to the children, which has to start from the home.
Yeah, thank you. In order to, I also would like to add with this point. Basically, what personally I observe now, the children were mostly seeing a lot of these cartoons channels. I think that also plays a major role in their behavioral change. Am I right, ma'am? Since you are a psychologist, you can tell the truth behind this.
No, that is one part. They can watch all these things, but it is the responsibility of the elders in the family to tell the children or to watch and educate the children. So we need not take education literally that they are getting information from the books, but education actually has to happen at home at earlier stages, where we can actually tell the children how far all these games can influence their mind and emotional development. That is becoming a big question, because parents don't find time to share their experiences or their valuable time with the children. That quality time is lacking, and that is the biggest question.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. There is another couple of questions probably I would like to answer. One is how this climate change impact or disaster impact on the children is being evaluated. There are three indicators at global level. One is child stunting and child wasting and underweight. These are the three major indicators that are being used at global level to assess the disaster impact on children. In terms of height for age, and similarly weight. Child wasting is weight for height, and being underweight is both height and weight reference to their age. So these are the three major indicators where being used. So this can be used at all other level also. There is another question like the practical things like children can do, like collecting plastics and planting trees and being aware about the animals and natural system can be teach in the classroom, or is it encouraged? That's what the question raised by the person. Of course, it's a common thing whenever you have a child, and now we all suggesting that the climate change and was need to be included in the basic lessons, even if it is not done. As a teachers, it's our responsibility to educate our children with this climate change and the environment and system, so that the children can be aware of these basic things, which will helpful them to protect themselves in the future, to protect the nature also. I think there are some more questions. I'll take one or two questions. Probably we may come to the conclusion. Is there any impact due to COVID-19 on biomagnification of any heavy metals in food to living form case study? Is it clear, ma'am?
I think there is no correlation between accumulation of heavy metals and coronavirus, I think.
Not yet.
Yeah.
There is a last question. I may take it. What are the necessary steps we have to take on climate change maximum on water, air pollution arising more? I am repeating. What are the necessary steps we have to taken on climate change maximum on water, air pollution arising more?
Should I respond to that, Dr. Balu?
Yes, sir. You are most welcome. Please.
Actually, I wanted to respond to a host of other topics, because what I feel is our participants are mostly urban centric. So they are talking about kids who are in the urban areas and talking about kids who have different type of stress because of the exposure to internet or exposure to Facebook or social media or something like that. You know, they have their own compulsions, and they, because of the COVID, some other stress factors have built up. And rightly, as Dr. Helen was telling, it is the parents' responsibility or the peer pressure, peer group which they have, to create that enabling atmosphere where they feel comforted and they actually develop those, inculcate those value systems which we want them to have. Besides that, what I am more thinking about than the second question about environmental conservation or pollution, my concern, because as a forester, we have been visiting rural areas. What I feel is the situation of children in rural areas is far more far more concerning, where we have to take our attention. And I would request all the participants to be aware of this fact that the country actually resides mostly in the rural areas. Urbanized conglomerations, they have their own, definitely they have their own issues, but the majority of the children, majority of the population still resides in the rural areas, and there it is more important for us to look into the aspects of climate change management, climate change impacts, because climate change is directly impacting the fundamental necessities of life. It is impacting agriculture production, it is impacting water resource, it is impacting land use, and it is directly impacting the livelihood of the host of almost 60% of the population. And if you look at that factor, if you understand, 60% of the country is actually getting directly impacted by climate change, because in the urban areas, we actually get food produced from the rural areas. But the rural areas, they are not able to produce. The agriculture production is changing. The water is getting scarce. And also because of the other factors, the deforestation and the loss of biodiversity, the whole cycle of food production and good quality crop, it is getting affected. So we have to look at that, and the answer to the effect of pollution, how do you tackle pollution, it actually lies in supporting the nature in terms of reducing the biodiversity loss, in terms of ensuring around us we don't cut the trees. We try to protect and conserve water to the extent possible. We try to minimize the, our disposal of waste in the nature, in terms of plastic disposal or in terms of throwing away toxics, and even in terms of throwing away medicines. And Udaipur is called the city of lakes, and there has been a study conducted in all the lakes of Udaipur, and you will find we have very good lakes. They are full to the brim now, but then the water is not drinkable. It is not potable, and it contains a lot of toxics, not because which have come from the industries. It contains a lot of toxics, chemical toxics, which have come from the medicines which we throw in the sewerage channel, or we just throw in our sewages, and that all accumulates and comes through the water cycle into the lakes. So, and that is creating a different type of health-related problems. The problems are anemia, the problems are impotency, the problems are the mental retardation in the people around in the city of Lake. So this has been observed. So we as an individual, we have to be careful that even if we are contributing something to the environment, let it be positive, let it be something good. And we have to restrict ourselves or constrain ourselves from throwing those garbages into the nature. Can we somehow manage plastics in our home? Can we somehow reduce the consumption of water? Can we somehow conserve the consumption of water? Or can we see that our soil does not get polluted? If we are able to individually address these issues at our own level, probably all this will get accumulated and work out for the betterment of the society and the nation. That is what I would just like to wind up with. Thank you, Dr. Balu. Thank you for giving me this time. Thank you.
So in the first presentation, we have seen a lot of best practices like a smart environment, smart classroom, and kitchen garden initiatives, and a lot of initiatives being done by children and child-centric environmental protection activities through the schools. And we have seen a lot of how the children were being affected by climate change and environment. So we got some recommendations from the Assistant Director, Mr. Venkatesan sir also. Definitely, we will include in this all deliberations held in this today's program in our report. So I request Urvashi ma'am, would you like to add any points here?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So now I request Mr. Venkatesan Sarma sir to deliver a concluding remarks to conclude this program.
No, thank you. Thank you. I thought I had already delivered that, but then let me do it once again. Because I was looking at all the aspects which have been discussed and the few questions which had come up, and just as a policy, I have been into the policy making for quite some time now, and being a senior forest officer, we also try and converse with the policy makers and ministers and also the secretaries when we are developing schemes. What I've seen is over the years, somehow because of the sensitivity, gender has actually formed the mainstream of policy making. We look at gender aspects, and every time there is a discussion on budget, or every time there is a discussion on the making of a scheme, we take care that women are included. Similarly, there has now been a greater awareness of the environment part of it. So when the departments are taking up related any activity, say water resource department is taking up an activity, or a public works department is taking up an activity, or even the industries department taking up an activity, somehow in their scheme of things, they now ensure that the environmental factors and environmental issues are factored in, and they are also addressed in terms of plantation or waste disposal or zero waste management, things like that. But the aspect of children as such has not been addressed in our policy making as such. And this is very critical, because looking at what discussions we had, and Dr. Helena and Dr. Urvashi, their deliberations, I think it's now high time that children also become a part of that agenda of policy making. Somewhere in the policy making draft format, there should be something, how does project or policy affect the children? And if it affects, what are the we do this threat appraisal. We do the appraisal, how it will affect the children in the short term or long term, and what are the ameliorative measures, or what are the rectification measures which have been actually included in that particular project or schemes. So if we do that, probably that we'll be able to integrate the concerns, what we have been seeing, what we have been listening to the panelists, in the actual implementation of scheme. Otherwise, it will just remain a lip talk. It will just be a lip service the children are doing. But how do you address that? You address it through schemes. And schemes should have specific query relating to children. And it's very important today, because again, these children are going to be flag bearers of the future. They are the people who will be actually holding the nation, leading the nation in the future. They will actually be bearing the impact of climate more than most of us. So that is how. So I suppose in this webinar we can, with the NIDM, can take up this issue of how to integrate the concerns of children, their impact of children on each and every policy. Every policy should have, every project or scheme should have one format or one point on the effects of children. That is how probably we can integrate all these things. So I think it was a very informative, very enriching, very deliberative webinar which NIDM was able to organize. And I congratulate Dr. Helen, Dr. Urvashi for their insight and their views. And I am very sure the participants would have been delighted and they would have been enriched because of this information. And they will take back some takeaways where they can also put in their effort, or they can also contribute in some way or the other in sensitizing the people around. And also, if they are implementers of some schemes or projects, they can include these aspects in their schemes and projects. So with these words, I congratulate all of you and wish to have more such seminars and webinars on different aspects of disaster management, risk reduction, and social and socio-economic upliftment in future. Thank you, Dr. Balu. Thank you for this opportunity. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now it's a time for a lot of thanks on behalf of and like to thank the Executive Director NIDM for his visionary motivation to organize such webinars. And I also thank Mr. Venkatesh Sharma, sir, IFS Assistant Director of HCM RIPA, for his concern to join this program. And I also thank both the eminent speaker, Dr. Helen Christiana and Ms. Urvashi Chandra, for giving their valuable time and recommendations in this program. And my final thanks also to Dr. Ira Patnakar, Assistant Professor from HCM RIPA. And my sincere gratitude to all the participants who made great successful in this webinar. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Balu.
Thank you, ma'am. Ira, ma'am, can you?
Yes, of course. I would like to express my deep sense of gratitude to NIDM for collaborating for this particular webinar, and along with Professor Santosh Venkatesh Sharma sir, who gave the inaugural address, and Dr. Helen, Christina, and Urvashi ma'am. It was really an eye-opening webinar, and some very grave concerns for us, and to focus on children and what all that we can do, and the kind of data that you have put up, Dr. Helen. I think that really means it's quite an eye-opener for us, and I feel the situation is very serious and a grim situation that we all have to look up to. And we have the participants, as I could see in the list. It's a very heterogeneous group, and we have medical professionals and advocates, and we have faculty people from both university colleges and the schools also, and some very senior trainers also. I think this webinar is going to be very useful to all of us, and looking forward to more such webinars. And of course, yes, we are delighted rather to connect with national level institute, which is working so much towards disaster management. And thank you once again. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ira ma'am, and Sharma sir, thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Dr. Helen, we would be inviting you also for our own institute programs also. Please. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Here.